Science on stage. At HC's Science Slam on the Climate, 5 researchers present their work in an entertaining way. From hugging trees to competing with penguins, each research slam has its own unique charm. The Heidelberg Centre for the Environment organised the event as the opening of the International Conference on Climate Action 2019 and the Climate Neighbourhoods. Philipp Strogel leads through this evening. Junior Professor Dr. Jan-Peter Schilling makes a beginning focusing on the relation between climate change and conflict.
So the problem is now that you have drying, soil and everything, Farmer Bob is losing his cow, and that's a bad thing. That's very sad. Can we have a sad, not signs like, oh, for the cow, thank you very much. So Farmer Bob is now moving somewhere else because he can't live there anymore, where he can't use a strange tool and can't be with his cow. So now he moves somewhere else, and there are 2 basic options now. What can happen? On the one hand, there can be people like, welcome Farmer Bob, welcome Farmer Bob. Here we open our hands. 1, 2, 3, 4, straighten the things, 5. So he has open hands, Farmer Bob, come to us, we've been waiting you, where have you been, we can milk a cow, let's join hands and sing happily ever after together. That's one option. And we also use, in science we also use those things, numbers, so this is option 1. Try to remember that, there's going to be a quiz at the end, so I'll ask you about those options. Option 2 is now, that's a less comforting thing, is that Farmer Bob will be faced with a gun and shot in the head. Okay, that's very sad.
Catherine Kahlau shows that hugging trees is not only for hippies.
We do have to do some statistics. And then we put all the stuff we measured into a nice tree model, and then we know what the tree does in ecosystem services. So, how do we get there to find the best tree? First of all, you need to find people who are dumb enough, valuable employees, to do the measuring. And for example, we measured 400 trees in the city of Bayreuth. It took a very long time. And we did all these measurements, and more measurements. And it's important to know the health and safety. The risks of tree measuring. You may think it's like a harmless hippie thing. No. First of all, there's drivers. Because if you want to know how high a tree is, you have a device that kind of looks like this, and you point it at the top of the tree. So you're doing something like this. And you're walking backwards on the street, and the cars nearly kill you. Number 1. Number 2 is poop. Because if you're doing this, also, you don't see poop. There's poop everywhere in cities. Once you've measured trees, you'll know it. It's like... And elderly people. Because they have a lot of time, and when they see you measuring trees, they think you have nothing to do. And they come up to you, and they'll tell you everything.
Max Youngman's slam explores the relations between climate change and human health.
When you think about climate change or the climate crisis, we've heard lots of things that people come across and images that people have in their mind. So very often if you see pictures of climate change, you see polar bears or penguins, or sometimes even polar bears and penguins on the same... No, that's... Yeah. That's Photoshop, right? Good. But what I was really interested in was something really depressing, actually, like malaria, dengue, allergies. I'm allergic, so I really care about allergies, and I started to realize that climate change is actually related to it. And I am a political scientist, and I wanted to know more about the background. How does climate change affect our health? And if we know all of that, why are we not doing more against it? So my question really is also, what motivates states, decision makers, to act more against climate change? And is health maybe one of the reasons that might motivate them to do more against it?
And the grim topic of death has amusing facets when Andreas Schäfer is on stage.
Those natural disasters I study include mostly earthquakes, tsunamis, landslides, volcanoes, tropical cyclones and others. And that's my dilemma. It becomes interesting when people die. So, what do I do? What do I say to the god of death? I'm a good person. Usually I say, not today. But health, science, I have to work with this stuff. So I have to ask myself, how do people die? And I ask the Reaper I trust. And what are the reasons people die?
Last but not least, Dr. Jan Marcus Nasse complains about penguins diverting attention away from his scientific work.
I looked at chemistry in the atmosphere and I have a problem with penguins. So at the beginning of my PhD, together with my colleagues, I built a new instrument that can measure trace gases in the atmosphere. The basic idea is to send light through the atmosphere and then the trace gases leave a kind of fingerprint in that light. And with this instrument, we can measure tiny concentrations of gases in the atmosphere. And I looked at a really particular kind of chemistry that only happens in the polar regions of the world. So in order to do these investigations, we operated the instruments here in the coastal area of Antarctica, and that is the location of the German Antarctic Station Neumeier 3. Now, doing science not in a lab, but in Antarctica is kind of different. I mean, that starts with your lab coat. Also, it can be a bit draftier than in your usual lab. And also you have all kinds of hazards you don't think about when you go there for the first time. But actually that's not the penguin problem I am having. That's actually the case when I'm talking about my science, like right now, and then you introduce your topic with a nice slide, for example, this iceberg, to show the scenery where your science is taking place. If you haven't been careful and selected a picture where people can spot these little tiny black spots standing around in front of the iceberg, it's too late. And I'm 100% certain what all the questions in the end will going to be about. Penguins.
The audience graded each talk and crowned Jan Marcus as the winner of the evening.